It is 2 a.m. Your eyes burn, your body begs for sleep, and yet your thumb keeps moving. One more video, one more scroll, one more peek at something that will not matter in 12 hours. You have done this before. Maybe you do it every night. You tell yourself you will stop after this one, but that was 45 minutes ago. And here's the strange part. You are not even enjoying it. Not really. There is no deep satisfaction in what you are watching, just a low hum of stimulation that feels slightly better than nothing. So why can you not stop? Here's what nobody told you. This is not a willpower problem. This is not about discipline. This is not even about the phone, really. This is about your brain hunting for something it did not get during the day, and it will keep hunting until it finds it, or until you pass out from exhaustion. What you are experiencing has a name. Psychologists call it revenge bedtime procrastination. And once you understand what is actually happening in your brain, you will never look at your late-night scrolling the same way again.
The term comes from China, Baofu Xing Ao Ye. It translates roughly to revenge staying up late. And the word revenge is not accidental. It captures something important about what is really going on here. Think about your day. From the moment your alarm goes off, your time belongs to someone else. Your boss, your clients, your kids, your commute, your inbox, your endless list of obligations that never seems to shrink no matter how much you check off. By the time evening arrives, you feel hollowed out, like the day took everything from you and gave nothing back. And then night falls. The emails stop. The demands pause, and suddenly, for the first time in 16 hours, your time is yours. This is the moment your brain whispers something dangerous. Finally, freedom. You are not just staying up late, you are taking back what the day stole from you. You are getting revenge on a schedule that left no room for you, and it feels good. It feels rebellious, like the night is the only thing in your life that actually belongs to you. But here's where it gets complicated, because the thing that feels like freedom is actually a trap, and your brain is walking right into it. To understand why you cannot stop scrolling at 2 a.m., you need to understand dopamine, and not the simplified version you've heard 1,000 times, not the dopamine is the pleasure chemical story. That's only half right. Dopamine is not primarily about pleasure, it's about anticipation. It's the molecule of wanting, not having. It's what makes you reach for the next video before the current one ends. It's what makes you pick up your phone without even deciding to. It's the seeking system. And here's the key. Your brain runs on a kind of internal ledger. It tracks rewards. It notices when you're in deficit. Think about what happens during a typical demanding day. You wake up tired. You commute in traffic or on a crowded train. You sit in meetings that could have been emails. You deal with problems that aren't really your problems. You eat lunch at your desk because there's no time. You answer messages during dinner. You finally sit down at 9 p.m. feeling like you've run a marathon but have nothing to show for it. Where were the wins? Where was the reward? Where was the moment that made your brain say, yes, that was satisfying? For most people, those moments never came, and your dopamine system noticed. It kept a tally. It registered a deficit. So when night arrives and the obligations lift, your brain does something automatic. It starts hunting. It needs to balance the books. It needs to find rewards somewhere, and the phone is right there, glowing, waiting, offering an endless stream of little hits. Not big rewards, not deep satisfaction, just enough to keep the seeking system engaged, just enough to keep you scrolling, just enough to convince your brain that maybe the next video will be the one that finally feels like enough. But it never is, because you're not solving the problem.
You are just numbing the symptom.
Here is where the psychology gets even more interesting. There is a fundamental human need that drives almost everything we do. Psychologists call it autonomy, the feeling that you are the author of your own actions, that you have choice, that your life is yours to direct. When this need is met, you feel alive. When it is not, something starts to die inside you. And for most people, the modern day is an autonomy desert. You wake up when the alarm says, you work when the schedule says, you respond when the notification says, you sit when the meeting says, you eat when the break says. Where is the choice? Where is the authorship? By 9 p.m., your autonomy tank is bone dry, and then night comes. No one is watching, no one is demanding, no one is scheduling. For the first time all day, you get to choose. And what does your brain choose? The path of least resistance, the phone. Because after a day of depletion, you have no energy left for anything that requires effort. Reading a book feels like work. Going for a walk feels impossible. Having a real conversation stimulation feels exhausting. But scrolling requires nothing, just a thumb. And just like that, the only autonomous choice you make all day is to hand control over to an algorithm. There is a brutal irony here. You think you are finally free, but you are not choosing what you watch. The algorithm is choosing for you. You traded one master for another, and you don't even realize it. Let's talk about why the phone is so impossibly hard to put down. This is not accidental. This is architecture. Every app you are using at 2 a.m. was designed by people who understand your brain better than you do. They know about something called variable reward schedules. This is the psychology behind slot machines. Here's how it works. If you knew exactly what you would get every time you pulled the lever, you would get bored fast. The reward would become predictable, and predictable rewards don't trigger dopamine. But if you never know what's coming next, if each pull could be boring or could be amazing, now your dopamine system goes into overdrive, because dopamine is about anticipation, remember, and maximum anticipation comes from maximum uncertainty. This is why you keep scrolling. You never know if the next video will be forgettable or the best thing you've seen all month. So you keep pulling the lever over and over for hours, and it gets worse. The infinite scroll design removes all natural stopping points. In the old world, there were endings. The TV show ended, the newspaper had a final page, the magazine ran out of articles. Your brain had natural cues that said, this is done, time to do something else. Infinite scroll deleted those cues. There is no bottom, there is no end, there is always more. Your brain never gets the signal that the meal is over, so it keeps eating, even when it's not hungry anymore, even when it's 2 a.m. and you have work in 5 hours. And short-form content makes it even worse. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute. Each piece is so short that quitting feels arbitrary. Why stop now? The next one is only 30 seconds. You can afford 30 more seconds, and 30 becomes 60, and 60 becomes 600, and suddenly you've lost an hour to content you won't remember tomorrow. There's also the blue light factor. Your phone screen emits light that tells your brain it's daytime. This suppresses melatonin, the hormone that makes you sleepy, so you stay artificially alert, even as your body screams for rest. You feel tired, but you don't feel sleepy. That's not a contradiction. That's biology being hacked. The whole system is engineered. The variable rewards, the infinite scroll, the short-form dopamine hits, the sleep-suppressing light. You are not fighting a fair fight. You are a human with a brain designed for the savannah, going up against technology designed by thousands of engineers to exploit every vulnerability you have. And you're doing it at 2 a.m. when your willpower is at its weakest. No wonder you keep losing.
Here is what this habit is actually costing you, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. Sleep deprivation does not just make you tired, it makes you dumber. Studies show that after 17 hours without sleep, your cognitive performance is equivalent to having a blood alcohol level of 0.05%. Push that to 24 hours and you're at 0.1%. Legally drunk. Every night you sacrifice sleep to scroll, you are starting the next day impaired. Your memory consolidation gets disrupted. The brain sorts and stores what you learned during the day while you sleep. Cut that process short and you retain less. You learn slower. You forget faster. Your emotional regulation tanks. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for controlling impulses and managing emotions, is extremely sensitive to sleep. Skimp on sleep and you become more reactive, more irritable, less patient, more likely to snap at people who do not deserve it. Your willpower drains faster. Here's the vicious cycle. The same part of your brain you need to stop scrolling is the part most damaged by not sleeping. So you scroll because you're tired, and because you scroll, you sleep less, and because you sleep less, you have even less ability to stop scrolling the next night. The cycle tightens, night after night, until it feels like this is just who you are, a night owl, someone who does not need that much sleep. But that's a story you tell yourself, not the truth. Long-term, chronic sleep deprivation is linked to anxiety, depression, weight gain, weakened immune function, earlier cognitive decline. You are not just borrowing time from tomorrow morning, you are borrowing from your future self, and this debt compounds with interest. So how do you escape? How do you break a cycle that feels automatic? The first thing to understand is that willpower is not the answer. If willpower worked, you would have fixed this already. The problem is not that you lack discipline. The problem is that you're trying to use discipline at the exact moment of the day when it is weakest. 2 a.m. is not the time to win a battle of wills against an algorithm designed by 10,000 engineers. You need a different approach. Strategy 1 is dopamine auditing. Go back through your typical day and ask yourself where the wins are. Where are the moments of genuine satisfaction? Where are the rewards that are not just obligations checked off a list? Most people have almost none. They run on empty all day and wonder why they're ravenous at night. You need to deliberately schedule small wins during daytime hours. Not big things, small things. A walk outside, a conversation with someone you actually like, 20 minutes on a project that genuinely interests you, a meal you eat slowly and actually taste. These are not luxuries. These are investments in your nighttime sanity. When your dopamine ledger is balanced during the day, your brain is not so desperate at night. The hunting stops, or at least slows down. Strategy 2 is micro-freedoms. Remember the autonomy problem? Your brain craves choice. It craves authorship. So give it some, not at night when you're depleted, during the day. Find small ways to exercise control. This could be as simple as choosing your own lunch instead of grabbing whatever is fastest. It could be taking a 15-minute walk with no destination. It could be blocking off 1 hour on your calendar that belongs only to you. No meetings, no obligations, just space. These micro-freedoms add up. They tell your brain that you are not just a passenger in your own life, and when night comes, you won't feel that same desperate need to take back what was never given. Strategy 3 is giving your phone a bedtime. Not you, the phone. And the phone goes to bed before you do. Pick a time, maybe 10 p.m., maybe 9 p.m. if you're ambitious. At that time, the phone goes to a designated location outside your bedroom. Not on your nightstand, not within arm's reach. Another room if possible. Plugged in, done for the night. This is friction engineering. You are not relying on willpower to resist the phone. You are making the phone harder to access. The goal is to add just enough friction that the automatic reach doesn't work anymore. You have to actually get up, walk to another room, make a conscious decision, and often that's enough to break the trance. Strategy 4 is extending this friction everywhere. Delete apps that you only use for mindless scrolling. Not forever, necessarily. You can re-download them, but adding even 30 seconds of friction changes behavior. Log out of accounts so you have to log back in. Use app timers that lock you out after a certain amount of daily use. Turn your phone grayscale.
Colors are part of the dopamine trap. Black and white is boring. Boring is the point. Make scrolling slightly less effortless, slightly less automatic. That slight change creates space, and in that space, you can make a different choice. Strategy 5 is finding a replacement ritual. Your brain has built a habit. Cue, nighttime. Routine, scroll. Reward, dopamine. You cannot just delete a habit. That leaves a vacuum, and vacuums get filled, usually with the old behavior. What you can do is replace the routine while keeping the cue and finding a new reward. The cue stays the same. It is late. You are in bed. You want something. The reward needs to be similar. Low effort, mildly pleasurable, soothing. So what routine fits? Audiobooks work for some people. You still get to consume content, but there is no infinite scroll. Stories have endings, and closing your eyes to listen is very different from staring at a bright screen. Podcasts can work, especially ones that are interesting but not stimulating, conversational, calm, something you can drift off to. Some people use breathing exercises. This might sound boring, but boring is actually what your brain needs at 2 a.m. The problem is overstimulation. The solution is not more stimulation. Physical books work too. The light is different. The experience is different. There is no notification coming, no next video auto-playing, no algorithm pulling you deeper, just pages, finite pages. Find something that scratches the same itch without feeding the same beast. Strategy 6 is the hardest but most important, the identity shift. Right now, you might think of yourself as a night owl, someone who does their best thinking late at night, someone who just does not need that much sleep. These are stories, and stories can be rewritten. What if you started thinking of yourself as someone who protects their sleep? Not because sleep is a chore, but because sleep is when you rebuild, when you consolidate, when you prepare to actually be present for tomorrow. What if staying up scrolling started to feel like self-sabotage instead of self-care? This shift shift does not happen overnight, but it starts with awareness. Every time you catch yourself in the 2 a.m. trance, you now have language for what is happening. You are not weak. You are not lazy. You are running a dopamine deficit. You are starving for autonomy. You are being exploited by systems designed to exploit you. Knowing this doesn't magically fix everything, but it changes how you see yourself, and that changes everything else over time.
Here is what I want you to take from this. You are not broken. You are not uniquely undisciplined. You are not someone who just cannot control themselves around a phone. Your brain is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do. It is seeking reward in an environment of scarcity. It is hunting for dopamine because it did not get enough during the day. It is grasping for autonomy because someone else held the reins for 16 hours. These are not flaws. These are features. Features that made sense for 100,000 years. Features that are now being hijacked by technology that did not exist a generation ago. Problem is not your brain. The problem is the mismatch between your ancient hardware and your modern environment. And that mismatch can be addressed, not with more discipline, not with more self-criticism, not with more shame about what time you finally fell asleep last night, but with understanding, with small systems that make the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder, with deliberate investments in daytime dopamine so your brain is not desperate at night, with tiny pockets of autonomy that remind you that your life is yours, with a phone that sleeps before you do, with a replacement ritual that gives you something instead of nothing, and with a new story about who you are. Not a night owl, not an insomniac, not someone with no self-control, but someone who understands their brain, someone who protects their sleep because they understand its value, someone who refuses to let an algorithm run their nights. The changes are small, but small changes compound. One night becomes two. Two becomes a week becomes a month, and somewhere along the way you look up and realize the trance is broken. The 2 a.m. scroll is no longer automatic. The morning is no longer a fog of regret and exhaustion. You did not become a different person. You just stopped fighting the wrong battle and started designing an environment where the right choice is the easy choice. Now, if you have been nodding along to this, but you also noticed something else about yourself, maybe the phone is not your only issue. Maybe you struggle to finish things you start. Maybe you're great at beginning projects and terrible at seeing them through. Maybe you have a graveyard of hobbies and half-built dreams. If that sounds familiar, you are dealing with a different but related problem, and I made a video about that. It's about the neuroscience of quitting, why your brain gives up when things get hard, and what you can actually do about it. You can watch it right here. Thanks for sticking with me on this one. I hope it gave you something you can actually use tonight. Not next week, tonight. See you in the next one.